Hey physics, we're going to take a look at the details of mechanical energy. So let's take a look at what we introduced before winter vacation. We know that energy is the ability to do work. It's the ability to create forces and cause an object to change its motion. In of course, all the definitions and all the textbooks, it says the ability to do work, but we haven't defined that yet. So let's describe mechanical energy. Mechanical energy is really not a type of energy. It's a class. And what I mean by that is that if we were to Venn diagram that, mechanical energy is made up of two subtypes, kinetic and potential energy. So if you were to add up all of the kinetic and potential energy, you would have the total mechanical energy. And that'll be our primary focus of introductory physics. We'll look at energy with light waves and sound waves later this year. So let's dig in. Energy stored in an object that is in motion is part of mechanical energy, or because of their positions. And we'll talk about how position should be interpreted. The abbreviation for mechanical energy is ME, and the unit is still joules. All energy in the metric system is measured in joules. The alternate units that might be used, you might see in a chemistry class, are calories. And there's about 4 calories in a joule. Now, going even further, there's actually also a very common unit used throughout science, of course, kilojoules and kilocalories, because these units of energy are very, very small. So TME, the T stands for the total of all the mechanical energies. And you know what a total is. It's the sum. So like the Venn diagram says, you add up all the kinetic energy a system has, plus all of its potential energy. And of course, we'll go into how to calculate both of those. Energy is a scalar. So the only time we will be talking about positive and negative energy is if we are gaining it or losing it. So if energy is present, it will always be positive, right? It's a positive value. And you might say, but wait a minute, sometimes we calculate using G, and we'll find out that because we're going to be measuring gravitational potential energy with a positive G value. Energy is the only time it's negative is when it's actually moving, when you're subtracting it or removing it from the system. That will be the only time we have negative energy. All other kinds of energy that are present are positive. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty details. I bet this word is not new to you, but I wonder if in your middle school experience or previous experience, someone taught you that these two energies are opposite. They are not opposites of each other. Kinetic energy, K-I-N, means motion, right? We've already studied kinematics. So this is the energy an object has because it is moving sideways, vertical, on an angle. Anytime it's moving, if it's rotating, it has kinetic energy. There's many abbreviations, but we're going to use the basic one, Ke. The formula is 1/2 times the mass times the velocity squared. And notice that the velocity is squared, and that means that it is the more influential variable. The faster an object goes, the bigger the kinetic energy, but it goes up exponentially. So if you were to double the speed of a moving object, the kinetic energy, right, you have to square that, it would be 4 times the kinetic energy. So driving cars, they often warn you about excessive speeds because the amount of energy that your vehicle has and has to get rid of it increases as the square of the velocity. So 1/2 times mass times velocity squared. Not a hard formula, but we'll practice that. Now, potential energy is actually its own classification. It's the energy that is stored in an object. It's in the object because of its position, right? Potential energy is the stored energy of position. And what makes it potential? It is that it could be released. It could be utilized somewhere else. Kinetic energy can also be transferred, but potential energy can be held in an object. So some people were taught in middle school that kinetic energy is energy of motion, and potential energy is energy at rest. It has nothing to do with being at rest, but it is stored in the object. The abbreviation is PE. There's many others. And energy can be converted, right? It can be switched from one kind to another. So here is an example of how to store potential energy. You take this object and you lift it up against gravity. And how far you lift it is the height of the object. So the more you lift that against the force of gravity, right? The force of gravity over here, not drawing it in the diagram, basically means that you are fighting to lift that object. It's like lifting weights. And when you lift it up in the air, you have given it a type of energy called gravitational potential energy. And so we call it PEG, and the formula is mass times G times H. And the H always refers to a height above some zero level. We call it ground level, but it's not always the ground. So if we're in our classroom, which is on the second floor, the height above the classroom floor is all that matters. In 20 years of teaching in D203, I have yet to see an object travel through the floor. So that is truly our zero height. The other kind of potential energy is elastic potential energy. And the two classic examples are a bow and arrow and a spring. Like the spring could be in a clicky pen, it could be in a garage door, or it could be in the shock absorbers that are in most modern cars. If you look in the wheel wells, you'll see suspension springs. And they keep the car basically from, when it hits a pothole, from bottoming out. It gives it a little resilience, but you don't want them to be too bouncy. So how do you store energy in this bow? Well, you pull it back some distance x, right? Normally the string would be right here and you've moved it. You've changed its position. For this spring, what you've done is you've taken it and you've either compressed it, made it shorter, or you've made it longer. You could stretch it. And so in the elastic potential energy formula, which you might find is kind of ironically similar to the formula for kinetic energy, but at the same time different, is it's 1/2 times the K. And what is a K? A K is a spring constant. It means basically the stiffness or the wimpiness of the spring. So some springs are incredibly hard to compress, like in a car shock absorber or maybe in a garage door spring. But other springs, like maybe a screen door, are very easy. Now, some of you may also know from maybe some gym class experience that some bows are harder to pull back, maybe one that's used for hunting or for long distance target practice. Whereas there's also kid bow and arrows that are very light and they're easy to pull back, and that's a spring constant. A spring constant has units of newtons per meter. And that's kind of sort of easy to remember. How many newtons would it take to stretch that or to move that spring or that bow 1 meter? How many newtons of force? And the distance that you've stretched it, right? This is measured in meters, is the x value, and it has to be squared. So similar to velocity, how far you stretch the spring is the bigger factor. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is to practice. You're gonna try to classify what kind of energy is present or is being described by these descriptors. And these descriptors, right, are either describing the presence or the absence of a certain type of energy. So for example, if an object is at rest means V0, then what kind of energy does it not have? Well, we're describing the absence of kinetic energy. What if a type of object's energy is dependent on its mass and height? Well, that's PEG, because the formula is m times g times height. Energy of motion, kinetic energy, and you're going to finish the 4 at the bottom of this, okay? I'll give you a chance to do that now, or you can hit pause. When you come back, I'd like you to also do some quick calculations of kinetic energy using the formulas at the top of the page. Kinetic energy is 1/2 mv squared. Potential energy due to gravity is mgh. And these are pretty straightforward, 4 kilograms. Now here's where we use a positive 9.8. I told you that we would be having to think about our positive signs. And that is a little weird because I've probably gotten you into the habit of making that a vector. but now we're dealing with the magnitude of gravity, not the direction of gravity, right? Because potential energy is a scalar. So go ahead and calculate each of those. We could check those during our next class. Okay, at the bottom, it does get a little interesting because in these, you have to calculate backwards from the energy, 64 joules, half of the mass, and the V is the unknown. And I don't think that'll cause too many people problems. Don't forget, you're going to be square rooting that. So don't forget to finish all of the previous page. Okay, let's jump ahead. And let's go all the way out to this page. I think this is the next most logical way to describe energy. So energy is this abstract quantity. We can describe it, we can measure it, but we can't really hold it. So what do we do with energy? Well, energy is famously used to do things, but it has this principle called the conservation of energy. So when energy is moved around, say you take chemical energy and you burn something, well, the reason we do that is to release the energy to heat our homes or to have our cars move if you use gasoline. If you have electrical energy in your car stored in a battery, that can also be converted into kinetic energy. And when energy, when energy is transformed from one kind to another, the total remains constant. And that's what we mean by conservation. Conservation isn't just an environmental term. There's conservation of matter or mass in chemistry class, and there's conservation of energy in physics class. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Energy is conserved. The unit is the joule, right? That's just acknowledging that we still know that the unit, so the total number of joules stays the same. If there is, and this is true, whether there is no external work done. Now you might say, Hausman, you skipped the page where we define work. Well, I'd like to define the work next, okay? What a work is any change in the mechanical energy. And we'll talk about how you do that. So if there's no work done, if there are no forces, then you would basically take the total mechanical energy initial and you would set it equal to the final. And what you could do with that would be to predict maybe an unknown velocity or an unknown height of an object somewhere later in the system. However, is it ever possible, like a swinging pendulum, to have no work done, to have no change in energy? It's very hard to do. So if there is some external work done, right, then all you have to do is factor in how much work was done on that, and that can be factored in. So you take your total energy, and then any energy that is gained or lost. We will primarily deal with lost energy, and then if you factor in any energy gained or lost, that should be equal to your final amount of energy. So these tables are a little bit interesting. They're hard to interpret at first until you get the hang of them. And the first two examples are already done for you. What they are is a little narrative where you have an object in one position, right? It's way at the top of a post and it's falling. So it has potential energy due to gravity. So look what we're doing. We're making a bar graph. We're using a model to represent what kind of energy is present, and there's no other kinds. Then, right as it hits the ground, the instant before it crashes, it has lost all of its height, right? H is 0, so it has turned into kinetic energy. But notice the total remains the same, 5 units before and 5 units after. Now, what about a system where there is work done, like skidding to a stop? Say you're driving along and your brakes do the work to slow you down. So we've got negative work. Why? Because you're losing mechanical energy. The car comes to a stop. So it starts with kinetic energy, driving along. Notice it's on flat ground. Then you have negative work, and it's equal to the same height. We had positive 5 here, we have negative 5 here. So there is 0 joules at the end, right? Coming to a stop sign or coming to a red light. Even the third one is done for you. So this is a little bit challenging, but I'd like you to try. And the only rule for in terms of how high to make the bar graphs is that the total initial, right, total mechanical energy initial, including any work, right, has to equal the total mechanical energy. So you kind of have to experiment with how high should I make them. So if we're going from A to B, for example, in this picture, a spring-loaded gun is used to project a dart. That sounds like a Nerf gun, right? A spring gun, that's a Nerf gun. And it's launched at some angle, and it's held at 1 meter above the ground. So it has spring energy, and but before the trigger has been pulled. The loaded spring is in the initial state, and the sponge dart is its peak in the final state. So at the beginning, it has a ton of spring energy. Let's do 3 units. And it also has height. Let's do 2 units. Why? Because I wouldn't want anything to add up for more than 5. So we'll have 3 and we'll have 2. Now, when it gets to its highest point, it has gone to all potential energy and maybe a little bit of kinetic energy because it's moving. So 1, it definitely slows down as it goes up. And then we'd have 4 units of potential energy. Oops, and no, that was correct. Sorry, I thought I made a mistake. 2 plus 3 is 5. 1 plus 4 is 5. There's many other configurations, but what you have to be correct about is, right, there was no work, there's no kinetic energy at the beginning, and there's no spring energy at the end. So there's a few more I'd like you to try, but those are they're kind of temperamental, and it takes a little while to get used to it, and some are definitely easier than others, such as the ball rolling down a ramp. But be careful, watch out if there's friction forces, and friction forces can slow you down or do negative work, okay? Watch out for that. And we move on to the second to last page. This is a great page to practice. It's not quantitative, but what it describes are 3 different scenarios. And I want you to tell me about the transformation of energy, the transformations. What kind of energy is present at the beginning? Oops, hard to write this. Sorry, because I'm near the edge of the screen. Transformations, there we go. If you were just watching that was probably a lot of weird pen mistakes. Still having trouble getting it to write on the edge of the screen. Maybe I try this again, right? Let's just get rid of all of this and just write it somewhere else, right? So these are all transformations. You can write it at the top. My pencil and this app don't like doing that. Apparently it's too close to the edge of the screen. So the marble begins at an elevated position at the top of a ramp. So picture a ramp in a marble, small ball, and it rolls down to the bottom of the ramp, assuming no friction. Well, as it rolls down the hill, it starts with potential energy, right? But no kinetic energy. So the potential energy is going to do what? Well, because the height is getting lower and lower, it's going to decrease, and the kinetic energy is going to increase. But the total mechanical energy is going to stay the same. So your final step is to complete this page 8 and page 9.